This is Dr. Carroll, and this video is an introduction to Java classes. Let's start off with, what is a class? Class is an object that contains data members and method members. And you can think of method members as being like functions if you're familiar with those. This is often depicted with a circle with some data in it and some methods, as you've probably seen in some of my other videos. And so let's first start talking about methods. So a method is a function that belongs to a class. We use methods to change or access the data values that belong to an instance of a class. So we have classes, they're like the blueprint, and then when we want to use that, we instantiate them, we get a copy of it, and then the methods change those values that are stored there. So to call a method, we use the object's name, then a period, this is the member access operator, and then the method name followed by parentheses. The methods are functions, so they take arguments, and methods are typically verbs or verb phrases is a good convention of how to name them. Let's see an example. So if we created a new random object and we stored that in rand object, and so random is a class, and so we want to call a method on random, and we can look and know that this is a method. Here we have an object, and notice the dot operator here, and then we have our method name, we have the parentheses, and then we're passing it 6. So this is getting a random number between 0 and 5, and then adding 1 to it to simulate a 6-sided dice. Sorry. And so there's an example. Let's look at another one. If we had a scanner object here, we're going to create a new one. We're going to create a string here, and then we're going to call next to get the next token from this object. And so it's this object here has some data stored with it, and this method is going to go in from this string and get the next token that is associated with it. There's also another method call actually in this last example right here. Print is a method, and notice it has the characteristic signs. We have the dot operator here, and so we have the object here on the left, and it has the parentheses, and we happen to be passing it something. And so there we go. There's some examples of some method calls. In Java, we can control which classes can use, /access, /modify an object's data and methods. And we do this with accessibility keywords, public, private, and protected. So members, both data and methods, are either public, private, protected, or the default setting. And there's different access modifiers, the public, private, public, protected, private, or the default, define which classes can access the members. So let's first talk about public members, so data or methods. So when we declare something public, that means any class can access the member, as the name suggests. Private, on the other hand, is only the members in the same class can access that data or that method. And protected means members of the same class, just like private, but also any derived classes that have inherited from it, or classes in the same package. We're going to be talking a lot more about protected when we talk about inheritance in a different video. And so data members of a class have special names: instance variables, class variables, or class constants. Let's talk about each of these. For an example of an instance variable is something like int sum that appears at the class scope, not inside a method, but just inside the class. And so each instance of the class has its own copy. So you could have one class and then have 5 instances, and each one, in this case, would have its own sum variable. They should be private, except only with very few exceptions. And it should be initialized in a constructor. We'll talk more about constructors in another video. A class variable is a little bit different. It has the keyword static in front of it. And so what this does is all instantiations of a class, all the objects, share the same copy of this variable. So in my example of having 5 instantiations, they would all have the same sum variable. They would all point to the same 1 in that case. Now the third type is class constant. We use the keyword final in something like static final int, like minimum deposit or something like that, to indicate that the final indicates it's not going to change. And so these constants are accessible by all instances of the class. Java comes with a lot of classes, and these are documented in its API. API stands for Application Programming Interface. And so the current for the long-term service version for Java is located at this URL. Let's go there. So here we have the Java Platform Standard Edition API and the Java Development Kit, but we're going to be focused most on the SE. So here we have all of the modules, and we're going to be focused almost exclusively on base, so let's go there. So this is the module, and then this module has several packages in it listed here. Notice lots of packages. Java is a popular language, and so we have that benefit to be able to take advantage of that, and they've already been developed. So let's explore some. Let's say util. We're going to be going to java.util a lot. We're going to be using it a lot. And so I referenced the scanner class, and so let's just take a look where, class summary. I was looking at interfaces. So you can see there's a lot. And so here's the scanner class. So the scanner class is inside the java.base module, and then the java.util package, and then we have the scanner class here, and then it has all sorts of things, methods and constructors that help allow us to call it and use it. So then how do we use, and that's what we just did at module level and then the package level and the class level. So if we wanted to use the scanner class or any other class in the API, what we would do is we'd write at the top of the code import a keyword, and then we use the package name, a dot, and then the class name, and then a semicolon, because all statements in Java end with a semicolon. And so an example for the scanner class is we would have import java.util.scanner, because java.util is the package name. You don't put the module name on there. And don't forget the semicolon as well. And then what that does is it gives the compiler the definition for the scanner class, and then you can use it. Okay, there's a quick introduction. I hope you enjoyed it.